Where I want to start today is by taking a look at the last time you as a citizen felt that a system is trustworthy. Where do you use trust in your lives, and why do you use trust in your lives? Why trust is such an important cornerstone of a national government. One of the first things we need to take a look at is a public key infrastructure. Now, a public key infrastructure is not just a piece of technology that you put down and it just starts working. The capabilities of a public key infrastructure allows for the citizen to trust the government and for the government to provide a fundamental portion of trust, which is integrity and non-repudiation. Public infrastructure is the foundation of trustworthy digital business within the continent and within the world itself. It's one of the oldest and most trustworthy technologies that has been implemented, tried, and it works. One of the most fundamental things that we need to take a look at when establishing this trust is to ensure that you continuously communicate back to the citizen and communicate back to government when establishing this technology that assists with policies, governance, and involves people to make sure this is a success. The reason why a PKI infrastructure is so important, it has got one fundamental little item that it delivers. It's called a digital certificate. That digital certificate becomes the citizen, the business, portable identity. That identity allows for government to be used in 3 different areas, and that is the reason why it's such a versatile item to have. First area is authentication. To enable real non-repudiated authentication by issuing a digital certificate to each citizen in your country allows for authentication to happen. And as was mentioned earlier, the conversation about crossing the local borders, neighboring countries, with a trusted digital citizen identity, that conversation can happen now. That conversation is something that we don't have to wait for tomorrow. It is a conversation that can happen now because the moment digital trust is enabled, that will enable the citizen to move between Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ethiopia, across the borders, and we know there's a fundamental trust in there. It also allows for communication encryption, which is the reason why a PKI certificate is such a versatile thing. It's one item that you have that enables communication encryption, giving the citizen the ability to transact with government and private sector and knowing that they are safe. And then the last one, the last functional item, is digital signatures. In the olden days, we used to take a pen, piece of paper, write it down, put your hand signature over there, and if there's any fraud to be detected, that is detected after the fact. So once a fraudulent signature has been put down, contract's been executed, they find out it wasn't the right person, it was a fraudulent letter. Digital signatures, that evidence, that specific portion of who signed now can be analyzed at the moment of opening the document or issuing the signature itself. That provides you with the best piece of technology that is governed and managed by people that allow a citizen to do all those functions with one item. Lastly, I think this is the most important thing of all. A public key infrastructure looks after all citizens. This is not just for the person that can afford a smartphone or has access to a laptop or constant internet. This even addresses the person or the people in the village, far out. Because a certificate can be worked, validated in an offline manner and in an online manner, which means by embedding a digital certificate in a smart ID card, physical card, it can be validated at any kiosk or any mechanism or means that has been put down for the citizen, which means from a digital divide, it closes the gap and allows full inclusion of all citizens. That allows us and it allows each and every country to make use of this technology and the governance and the people around it to practically implement and to ensure that government is successful in digital trustworthy business. With this, I'm going to hand over to Ms. Macy Maheri to continue. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm well aware that I'm the last person standing between you and lunch. So the good news is this is not going to be a formal speech. I actually want to give you some practical tools that you can use in your own countries to do what this talk was about, and that is how are we going to improve prosperity for all our systems with technologies like we've been talking about now, like PKI. So at Assertia, we've been fortunate that we've been working on these type of technologies and working in countries and solutions in 72 different countries. And during that time, we've learned a few lessons. And I think the most important thing that I want to say to you today is there's a clear difference between countries that get it right and countries that get it wrong. The countries or projects that focus on the technology fail. The countries or projects that focus on the benefits to government and to the citizens, they are successful. That is the big difference. So I try to capture that in a model to maybe remember. This is not a technology-specific model. If you would like to read a little bit more about it, you're welcome to contact me and I'll send you a copy of the book. But this is one of the extracts out of the book. It's the ABCD model. That is how easy this is. Actually, it's not that easy, which is why we're putting it up in a framework for you. The first area is adoption. So it's so important that you create mandates for the issuance and the usage of this technology in your country. It doesn't help you put something out there like a digital ID, a law about digital signature, but you do not mandate the use when you are interacting with government. Organizations are resistant to change. We're talking government, we're talking banks. There's great ambitions, but there's a built-in resistance to change from what is already working. People are familiar with it. So you have to create the mandate, for issuance and acceptance. For the citizen and for your own users inside government, ease of use drives this adoption. So when you're doing things, you've got to remember it's about people. It cannot be difficult. We've got to use technologies that they're comfortable with, and you've got to do it in a way that everybody likes. So that's a big part of this. The second part is the benefits. So that is the thing that's going to drive your project. You've got to be very clear on what are the citizen benefits, what are the business benefits, and what is the government benefits that you're going to get. And that's what you've got to focus on. It's not about putting the legislation in place. It's not about putting the technology in place. It's about driving towards the benefits. And when you see the benefits, then you know you've won. So you're going to make KPIs for that. You should have a KPI which is about adoption. It's not about putting in the PKI. It's about people adopting and using the technology. That's a very important KPI. You're going to look at fraud reduction, but that's not such an exciting one for everybody. But it is for the country, because that shows you that things are starting to work faster and more efficiently. I've put a couple of examples there as well. The C is very important. It's control. We have noticed in the last few years the world has gone crazy. So when you're designing these things, it is vital that you look after your sovereignty. You've got to keep control of what is going in. And the way to do that is to follow open standards, to make sure you're modular in your architecture. You can't build all the product yourself. So you are going to buy products. But you've got to make sure that when you buy products, they're following open standards, and this is a plug-and-play type system. It should be if you're following the standards. So a very important one as well. We've got initiatives like Gaia X, Xcode. These are ways of transferring data that have become open standards. So it's a far better way to do it than to go and do something proprietary and you're locked in forever, and we can't get out of that cycle. And then finally, you've got some new opportunities for clever design, especially to look after people. And we put two examples up there. We've got things like selective disclosure. When we are working with wallets on our phones, we can protect people's privacy by allowing them only to show what they need to show. That's not something you can really do now. When you're registering for something, you've got to give a copy of your ID book or your ID card. You give away all your information. But if somebody needs to know your age, then they don't need all that information. From the wallet now, you can say, only show my age. So you've got this opportunity to redesign thinking. You also got the opportunity to redesign almost every business process in government. And you don't have to throw out what you have. It's just a little bit of fine-tuning. Where you were signing a piece of paper, sign something digitally. It's little things like that. Don't have to do it all at once. But that is the first model that I want to put up, and that actually is the whole point of my talk. I'm just going to show you 3 more slides, and we'll be very quick about this. The QR code is our friend, and it's fascinating how this is linking the world of traditional interaction. Like, for example, in Europe, we had digital signatures with smart cards for a very long time, but people love the phone, so they want to use these things. So if you want to make it easy for somebody to bring a high assurance digital signature into a system, then you can let them scan the QR code to use their national ID or their mobile driver's license as a strong form of authentication. This was not possible 2 years ago. So we've got these new ways, and again, we're getting back to clever design, but in a way that people will love, in fact. They will love interacting with government when we start using some of these technologies. So we start, and we're looking at our digital identity credentials. That builds trust in government systems and government interaction. You then back that up with mandates in government to create this digital interaction with government. We got their driver's license, which the Honourable Minister of Finance already mentioned. We've got social benefits. We've got the way you contract with government. The way you give a tender to government should be electronic. There's things you've got to endorse because you are making your country work in a digital manner. So we've got contracting, we've got disclosure, we talked about that. And then, of course, the big one is in your financial systems. Countries have to gather money so that they can spend money. So we're looking at how do you collect VAT from merchants. That can be a digital process, it can be easy. We talked about e-filing and tax systems already. We're talking about streamlining the banking system so that it can be more inclusive. You can make things cheaper, you can let more people participate at a very low cost. All of these things are possible thanks to the new forms of digital identity which are coming out. And that is the way that we improve our economy. So it's part efficiency, but it's part just making use, leveraging this, that the President also talked about, this first-tier technology that we have now. We're as good as everybody else, and we can be better. So the last thing, and this will be in the slide handout, so you can just have a look at it, a couple of call-outs, just things to look at. Some of the programs that will be running, there's obviously in countries programs for natural identity, that's people, juristic entities. You've got to look at that as well for identity because they're the ones that pay the most tax, so we've got to look at that. Financial identity has got things associated with like KYC, for example. Wouldn't it be wonderful to share KYC in a country and bring the cost down again? We got contracting. Again, government should be leading in that area by doing digital signatures with the contracting, with the tendering process. We've got payments. We talked a bit about that. We talked about tax. We're using identity and social benefit payments. But the cornerstone of that is to get efficient registration in place and to issue electronic identity, especially the new verified credentials. We have to live in a world, unfortunately, where you can only trust where you can verify, and PKI, digital signatures, and electronic identity is the way we do that now. So that is all from our side. We do have a booth at the end. If anybody wants to talk about any of these case studies, please feel free. Thank you very much.